Alright, let's hope this time it all works out. I apologize for the delay in getting this over to you. Sorry that the previous video that was just under an hour did not save properly and I couldn't send you over the whole thing. Excuse my attire, it's pretty late tonight, and my apologies for not being able to do this for an audience at such short notice. But I wanted to give you an inside look into the introduction for what it is I'll be speaking about. That is interviewing for information. At this point in the program, the students have gone through 2.5 intensive days of learning material, from the DISC presentation to networking and building relationships, how to nail the job, time management, money management, a lot of skills that prepare you for certain moments that I intend to talk about right now. All these skills we're taught, all of these tactics that are being presented to you, tricks of the trade, things that help you get where you want, all culminate into this one experience, which is a conversation, an interview. Whether you be interviewing for a new job or you're interviewing with a potential mentor, it all boils down to a conversation and a relationship that needs to be developed and formed over this period of time. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be one conversation, done in 1 hour or a half hour. It can be a multitude of conversations, but there's nothing more important than that first conversation you have with a potential mentor or employer. And I want to talk about that importance today, as well as a few steps to help you prepare and nail this interview and this opportunity, which they'll be doing a couple of days from now at this point, when our mentor roundtable goes on. And in a few days we have the opportunity to meet potential employers, potential mentors, and you get to use what we presented to you the last few days and put it all into one product and really see what the benefits are of being able to interview for information. A little bit about myself. My name is Corey Brandt. I work with Granted Escrow. I started there back in March, and my job essentially is to interview for information with everybody that I meet. And if I could just begin to tell you about how important these conversations are, or how far they can really take you, I think you'll see a lot of value in what it is I'm about to speak about. Every conversation is an opportunity to build a relationship, whether that relationship leads directly to your business growing, to your career expanding, to your network growing, or your relationships bettering themselves. Every conversation is an opportunity to get better. I don't believe necessarily in perfection or chasing perfection. I think it's important to focus each day on getting better, being better than you were yesterday. And if you keep doing that day in and day out, you'll get as close to perfect as you can. I just don't know if perfect's a real thing, nor I don't think it's something we need to strive for, but get better. If you can focus on getting better every day, you'll find yourself in a very good place. So, interviewing for information. Kind of like to start things off with the quote. I'm always looking for different passages that I can look at, quotes I can relate to, phrases that just kind of bring it all into a very simple concept that helps me just remember things. So here's a quote I found for you guys I'd like to start off this presentation with. It's a single conversation across the table with a wise man is better than 10 years mere study of books. It's by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And I'm not saying don't read books. Reading books is very important. We've spoken a lot about that these past few days. There's some great reads out there that will help you be better at interviewing for information, being a potential employee, being a better individual. So keep doing that. But a conversation you have with someone that's been there, that's done that, that's gone through the experience, that's had the trials, had the errors, had the successes, the failures, you can learn so much from that individual in a matter of minutes, hour, days, whatever it may be. You can learn so much from them. You can skip the steps. You can learn quicker. You can take their advice for what it is, which is typically truth, and learn from it. If you were to sit down and listen to Dr. Bill talk to you about some of his more successful endeavors in his life and the things he's learned from it, that's success tips. Those are things you need to take to heart and listen to. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. We talk about copy genius. It's a very true thing to do. It's a very important routine to get into. So take advantage of these moments you have with these successful individuals that are doing what it is you want to be doing, and listen to them. Be present in the conversation, because what they're telling you works. They wouldn't be telling you if it didn't work for them. So a lot of you may ask, how do you get an interview? How do you set up one of these meetings? How do you get in front of a potential employer or find a mentor? What do you do? And at this point, I would ask that the audience, how do you set up an interview? How do you find a mentor? And what was your first step? And it's simple. It's a 3-letter word called ask. Dr. Bill is a big believer in this. You have to ask. If you don't ask for the business or you don't ask for the opportunity, don't expect it. People aren't just going to be able to read your mind or start handing you opportunities if they don't know what it is you're looking for. So ask. It may be hard to start, but once you ask that first question, pause. Let them reply. And then the conversation will flow, but you've got to open it up. And don't be afraid to ask. It's a simple thing, yet maybe difficult to do at first, but once you start practicing it, it becomes much easier. And then one thing I want to get going on is the interview process as a whole. There's multiple steps that occur throughout this whole process. It's not just the conversation itself. It's not just the initial thought of who I want to reach out to or the steps following after it. It's going to be broken down into 5 steps. And these 5 steps start off with the research. This is probably the most important thing you can do before you get into a meeting or a conversation with an individual is do your research. Know who it is you're reaching out to. Know what it is they've done, what their pasts look like, the school they've gone to. Learn as much about them as possible. The more you know about an individual before you sit down, the stronger your conversation can be. People will begin to take you seriously if they see you put in the work and done your homework before you got there. They know you're interested. They know you're passionate about it. It shows a lot about your character if you're willing to invest the time beforehand to get to know as much about this person as possible. Because if it is really something that you want, if it is really a mentor that you want, you will do this. You will show your passion for it. You will invest the time because it's worth it to you. And these people have done it, so they can see it in you. So devote the time to researching the individual, the company, the location, the industry, whatever it may be. Do your research. You don't have to be a professional on it when it's all said and done. You don't have to know everything, but do your research. Do the best you can to get an idea so you can have questions prepared and have a general agenda or plan or things you want to accomplish throughout this interview when you meet with them. Second step, which I believe Andy Carney may be one of the best individuals at this, is a preheat. If you have an individual that's connected you to this mentor or to this potential employer, have them talk you up. Have them send them a great email connecting the two of you. Tell them about your passion, your desire to get involved, your curiosity, your work ethic, the kind of person you are. If they can give you a warm introduction and make that person across the table already have a small idea of who you are, coming from a person that they trust, that goes a long way. It's kind of like you can compare it to cold calling, how difficult cold calling may be, and how hard it is to overcome those objections when you don't know somebody. If you're preheated, that warm phone call goes so much easier, so much smoother. The person's asking you questions, they're intrigued, and it kind of bridges the gap before you even start. So preheating's great. We'll go over the brag book later on in this, actually in this afternoon. It comes up after me. Marty Reed will be telling you guys much more about this brag book, and she'll tell you about how to make it easy for others to speak highly of you. And after you've done your research, you know who you want to reach out to, someone preheats you and makes the connection, you're at the stage of meeting them. You've set the meeting. Now it's the conversation. Now it's the relationship building. The rapport needs to be built. This is where the bread and butter comes to play. This is the actual one-on-one. And this is where, for me, it's the most fun. It's an opportunity to get to know somebody. It's an invitation to see into their life, for them to see into yours, and to share an experience with one another. The introduction is a very important part. You're having the opportunity to make your first impression, to build those likes with one another, to build those bridges of connectivity with the person across from you. You want to be likable, you want to be believable, and you want that individual to trust you. You need to build rapport. A lot of this is done through the research, through being proper with your introduction, with your manners. Saying thank you for taking the time to meet with you. I know you're a busy individual. So and so said a lot about you, and I'm very pleased to have this opportunity. Demonstrate what you've done. Demonstrate that you have an idea of what it is you came there to do, and make sure you thank them again for taking their time. The next step of that is the discovery. This is where you made your intros, told them a little bit about yourself, and now you're asking questions. You're taking the research and using it to formulate a plan to build stronger bonds, to find out what it is you both have in common. And maybe you already know where he went to school or she went to school. Maybe you already know what their accolades are, or the kids they may have, or the dreams they possess. This can all be found online through research, through friends, through referrals. But this is where you're really building all that content that you share with one another. You're discovering the things that you have in common, the likes that you each have, maybe the dislikes that you have, the things in common, the things you don't have in common. It's a discovery period where you guys both get to explore one another, and you can let them tell you about their lives. And the more they talk and the more they're getting invested in the conversation, the better it bodes for you, both as a potential employee or mentee. You want the person to feel invested in you and comfortable with you, and you need to ground that space and be a listener. Don't just hear them, listen. Don't be so worried about the next question, listen. Let them talk. Let them give you as much gold nuggets as they can about themselves, their career, and their advice, and enjoy the conversation. There's nothing more that me as an individual, you as an individual, anyone that you're talking to, the thing they know best is themselves. So the more you get them talking about themselves, the better this conversation goes. Let that go as long as you can, and be courteous to their time. If someone says they have 45 minutes, keep a close eye on a clock or a watch. Don't be staring at it too much, but check in. Be very professional in their time. When you notice that the conversation is wrapping up or the time is coming to an end, you gotta close. And this is one of the, I want to say, less practiced routines of a conversation, or less widely known, or, like I said, practice. It's a difficult thing, but it's extremely important if you want there to be a next step. There has to be an ask. We talked about asking before to get the interview. You have to ask to get the next steps. You can't just walk away and say thanks for your time and be done, because that individual doesn't know where you want to take it. They have too much on their plate to take it anywhere themselves. You need to know what you're trying to get out of it and tailor your questions to help get you there. You want to make sure that you're being professional when you ask what it is you're looking for. You can even ask them, what is the next logical steps for me to pursue this position more? Is there someone else I can speak to? Have I answered all of your questions regarding my capabilities to fulfill this role? If you were to be my mentor, what would that look like? Are there certain steps you want me to take? Are there books you want me to read? Are there classes you want me to take? Are there people you want me to meet with? You have to be willing to put in the work, and they're going to give you assignments. They want to see that you want to be their mentee. They're not just going to hand you anything. I'm experiencing that in my current profession, and he told me if I don't act upon my steps and the homework he's given me, he's not going to teach me, because it's not worth his time. And it makes total sense. So you have to be comfortable making that ask, and when they give you steps to take, you take them. After you leave, very important to send a thank you note. You got to send a handwritten thank you note. It's a great practice to have. It's almost like a lost art. A lot of people aren't doing that anymore, and it's just nice to open up a letter from an individual saying thank you for your time, thank you for your efforts, I appreciate the advice you've given me, the direction you provided me, and I plan to act on that, and I will show you how I do that. It's a great way to send a quick follow-up. Someone may email you back, give you a call, but don't just send an email. It's too easy to delete, too easy to overlook. And that's kind of a brief intro as to what I would get in on. I kind of wanted to go over those 5 steps as, I don't want to say quickly as possible, and give you an idea of what I was going to talk about in each one. Each one of those 5 steps will be broken down into many more slides. The 5 W's analysis will be involved in there, more examples of the research. I got a few more quotes that I like to share regarding that. Do some mirroring activities, get Christian up there, Annie up there, students in the audience. But for the most part, really want to reiterate over and over how important the preparation is. You got to be prepared, and with preparation comes confidence. If you're prepared and you're comfortable going into it, you will be confident and it'll shine through. You don't have to be outgoing to get a job opportunity, but you do have to be passionate. You have to be interested. And the more you prepare and the more people you speak with and the more asks you put out there, the more opportunities you'll have to speak with these individuals. And if you're prepared and you're present during the conversation and you know where you're trying to take it, there's no limit. A conversation can take you everywhere. There's essentially a gatekeeper at every turn, and that's a conversation away. You can build a relationship quickly by finding one thing you have in common with them, knowing what school they went to, knowing where they're from, knowing their likes, knowing the companies they worked at previously. Maybe you knew someone there. Just being as creative as you can to connect the dots with someone or to build a bridge between you and that individual will help you get far. And the follow-up's key. And being interested is a very strong skill to have. If you're interested in that person, they feel comfortable, they love it, and they want to do it again. They'll start offering you help. But I don't want to go too much longer. I don't want to redo the whole speech for you. But if you guys get an idea of it, and to continue to refine the slides and improve it from here and out until LEAP, and really enjoy this conversation, because I think it's one of the most important things you can do is conversation. Interview for a job, a mentor, or just another friend. So thank you guys. Hopefully this works right now.